I'm excited about this new series of podcasts I'm calling, What If They Don't Come Back Like We Thought? Welcome to the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast, a podcast about becoming 1% better every day. And now your host, yours truly, Clarence Stowers. Hey everyone, this is Clarence E. Stowers Jr., host of the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast, a podcast about becoming 1% better every day so that you can level up in all areas of life. And I'm excited about this new series of podcasts I'm calling, What If They Don't Come Back Like We Thought? And for those who are listening know or may not know, I am a pastor. I pastor the Mars Hill Baptist Church of Chicago. But since we are now almost 3 years into COVID, we call ourselves Mars Hill Anywhere. And that's reflected in our digital approach, in the revamping of our church app. And that app we nicknamed Church in Your Pocket. From there, you can access our sermons, our teachings, our calendar, and Bible reading, and be kept abreast as to what's happening in and around Mars Hill. And we've had our app as well as our mobile-friendly website for a very long time, so it's playing a pivotal role in our digital strategy to reach people who are far away from God, so we can help them in turn find their way back to God. Again, I'm excited about these episodes. What if they don't come back? And the interviews I've scheduled have been on point, real, relevant, and raw. You're going to hear from some incredible leaders, both within the church as well as outside, to share their perspective on how we navigate not our new normal, but as Tom Rainer says, our new reality. What if they don't come back like we thought? Carey Nieuwhof is a great resource to the church, and I frequently read and study his podcasts, his blogs, because Carey has his finger on the pulse of the moment, and I wait in anticipation on his predictions of church trends, his predictions on preaching and church life. And one particular article that we'll reference during this series of podcasts is why they're not coming back to church and what to do with who's left. And my goal is to take a deep dive into this particular post, this particular article, because it sets up the springboard so that we can plot a course that would make us appear intelligent instead of unintelligent. And what I love about this article, we'll dive deep into it, is how he approaches churches who've reopened and how those reopenings are going slow. It's not only local, it's regional. And he goes on to mention how, based upon this checkerboard pattern across the U.S., the great return back to church is not happening as we anticipated. And so pastors and church leaders, they keep on hoping. And they keep telling themselves things like in the fall, they will come back. After Christmas, they'll come back. When the mask mandate is lifted, they'll come back. When most people are vaccinated, they'll be back. After summer break, they'll be back. when all the restrictions are lifted, they'll be back. Once the kids are back in school full time, they will be back. And here it is, almost 2 full years into the pandemic. And I love what Carrie says. The great return to church has become the great realization. Maybe they're not coming back like we thought. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. We're going to dive into that, and I'm excited about that episode as we take a deep dive into Carrie's article. In another episode I'm excited about is my interview that I had with Dr. Ebony Only of Only One Consulting, and she deals with trauma that we've experienced because of this new reality that we find ourselves in. And in this episode, which we entitled Trauma in the Pews, one of the greatest lessons I've learned is that there is trauma in the pews, and most pastors and church leaders aren't prepared to deal with it. If you think about it, too many churches are focused on just getting folk back into the building, but they are ignoring the significant impact trauma may have faced to various degrees during the pandemic. And unless that changes, the church perhaps will become weaker and unable to fulfill its mission of creating disciples. But there is good news. The people outside the walls are facing the same trauma and need what only the church offers. So we'll dive into subjects like continuous traumatic stress disorder, CTSD, because we as African Americans, of course, have faced over 400 years of trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, racism, systemic racism, all of the above. And since we continuously live with events that cause this type of trauma, we want to unpack that. We want to deal with that. And I'm excited about Dr. Ebony Only, who's going to break it down and to give us practical steps as pastors and church leaders on how to deal with trauma in the pews. You don't want to miss that episode. Another episode I'm extremely excited about is already published. It's episode 10, The Theology of Technology. It's all connected to this because during these series of podcasts, we want to talk about technology and its impact in also developing a digital footprint. Some call it virtual, online church, all things digital. But episode 10, The Theology of Technology, deals with the fact that our faith, Christianity, was, in an authentic sense, the very first technologically driven religion. Galilee, Bethlehem, and the rest of Palestine, they were part of the Roman world, whose technological underpinnings had reached a level by Jesus' day that was not to be surpassed until the 19th century. Our faith utilized the roads that the Romans had built, the same roads that the Apostle Paul and his associates traveled to spread the good news, the gospel of Jesus, and they used it to spread our faith on what was at that time unprecedented engineering marvels. You need to check that episode out. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. Another episode I'm extremely excited about is what will our churches look like in this new reality post-COVID? Barry Winters says that COVID-19 crisis is a hinge point for the church. And this hinge point is a pivotal time that demands a mission-focused leadership. And if we don't make the pivot, then the church has the potential to slip back into busyness, consumerism, and all of the activities that define the church pre-COVID. Think about it, whether we accept it or not, this crisis is a hinge point for the church. The church's mission remains the same. Matthew 28:19-20, make disciples. Matthew 22, verses 37 through 42, loving our neighbors as ourselves. But the execution of that mission is going to look different. It's looking different during this pandemic and will likely continue to be different after the crisis has passed. And here's what I've learned. You can't always do in a crisis what you were doing before. The crisis demands something different for us to do to remain on mission. Rounding out this series of podcasts, what if they don't come back like we thought? I can't wait to dive in why the church can't be the same after the pandemic. And as we regather and are regathering, we already know the people who attend our churches bring the weight of trauma and tensions built up more than 2 years, now 3 years. And we can't be the same. We won't be the same. So how will we approach it? Will we forego all things digital, virtual, online, and focus solely on in-person gatherings? Or will we forego all things in person and focus solely on all things digital, online, virtual? And if we decide to do that, what will it look like? Will it mirror the same as in person as it will online, or will we take different approaches? And what are some of the others, the pioneers, are doing to kind of help us forge a strategy that will help us navigate in a post-pandemic world? Again, that episode, Why the Church Can't Be the Same After the Pandemic. And finally, rounding out our series of podcasts, what if they don't come back like we thought? We'll circle back again to my main man, Kerry Newhoff, a great resource to the church, and we'll take a deep dive into his interview with Mark Sayers on future church trends and how to lead through profoundly disorienting change and what to expect in 2022. And I'm excited about this episode because as Kerry interviews Mark, they talk about we're shifting from a complicated world to a complex world, and also how nature is making a comeback and how we're not ready for it. And then we'll round out that episode talking about how leaders will need to learn how to lead dividing congregations, which has nothing to do with theology, but the political issues masquerading as theology. My God, this episode, I'm telling you, is going to blow our minds, this episode will cause us to push the pause button and reflect on how we ourselves can become better leaders as we navigate this rocky terrain and lead our churches post-COVID. Aren't you excited? I know I am. And I can't wait to release this new series of podcasts, What If They Don't Come Back Like We Thought? And I'm also equally interested in hearing your comments, your thoughts, your reflections, because we now have to think as collaborators. One is too small of a number to do anything significant. And I always believe that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go further, then collaborate and go with the team. So we are all rolling up our sleeves to learn together, to grow together, to cry together, and to rejoice together. So stick around. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe so you'll be notified when this series of podcasts launches. What if they don't come back like we thought they would? Can't wait to see you on the other side. In the meantime, control what's controllable, and that is our attitude, our effort, our preparation, our prayer life, and our actions. And then leave those things outside of our control to God. Here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to mark your calendars for February the 4th, 2022. This new series of podcasts, What If They Don't Come Back Like We Thought They Would, launches. And I want you to be the first, so make sure you save the date, February the 4th, 2022. And also, if you don't mind, I would like if you would subscribe to the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast. And if you don't mind, give us a 5-star rating, because we're bringing 5-star material. Shameless plug. I can't wait to see you, and I can't wait for you to join us. Have a wonderful day. You've been listening to the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast. Join us next time for more insights on becoming 1% better each day and leveling up in all areas of life.